What if everything you desperately seek is, in fact, running not from you, but from the very force with which you try to grasp it? Take a deep breath into this question. Allow it to echo beyond your mind and reach the silent places of your body. In these places, a wisdom resides that speaks before thought, an intelligence you were taught to ignore. It is here that you find the hidden friction, an undercurrent of micro-tensions in the nerves running through your body, betraying a silent disbelief in the orchestration of life. It's like the low, constant hum of a machine that isn't operating correctly, almost inaudible, yet it drains the system's energy. Perhaps you feel it in your shoulders at the end of the day, or in your clenched jaw during the night. This is the warning from the ancient master Manly P. Hall, who whispered through time that fear magnetizes the very thing we resist. And what if this tireless chase is the purest physical manifestation of that fear? The force that, in a tragic irony, builds the very walls you are trying to climb. Our culture has taught us the art of war, the honor of the sword. Action, effort, relentless pursuit. We are conditioned to believe that life is a problem to be solved by force, that doors open with the edge of our blade. But how many times have you felt that the more force you applied, the more the door remained shut? How many times have you tried to grasp happiness like one who tries to hold water in a clenched fist, only to open it and find it empty? The higher mysteries offer us a different symbolic map, a deeper truth: the chalice versus the sword. The sword is the seeking that expends energy in a fight against the flow. The chalice is the receptivity that accumulates power by aligning with it. And what if your exhaustion is not a sign of weakness, but a call from your soul to a new way of being? An invitation to finally put down the sword and learn the silent stillness of holding the chalice. This is not a new philosophy, but a hidden equation of trust, a science of the soul taught by the Hermetic master Manly P. Hall. He equated genuine faith, or cosmic trust, with a real and palpable magnetic power. Chasing, he taught, disperses this force, fragmenting your energy field in 1,000 directions of anxiety. The act of receiving, however, concentrates it, transforming it into the mythical philosopher's stone of your own will, the force capable of transmuting reality. This is the true psychological alchemy, the journey of transforming the heavy lead of restless desire, which is moved by the dopamine of eternal anticipation, into the radiant gold of receptive presence, which is nourished by the deep contentment of serotonin. True strength is not found in running faster than others, but in learning to become so magnetically still that the entire universe moves toward you. The invitation that unfolds from here, therefore, is not for passivity or for giving up. It is for a radical shift in perception, a recalibration of your inner strength. It is a call to reconfigure your trust, to understand it not as a fragile hope, but as a strategic and active stillness. Imagine trust as the invisible roots of an ancient tree. They make no noise, they do not struggle, but their silent, deep presence gives them the power to drink from the earth and to stand firm in any storm. Think of your trust as this hidden lever, the silent force by which the invisible currents of the universe are finally given permission to deliver to you that which your frantic attachment, by its very nature, inevitably repels. This is not about giving up on your dreams. It is about ceasing to scare them away with the energy of your pursuit, and instead learning the sacred and almost forgotten art of opening yourself to receive. There is an exhaustion particular to our era, a weariness that sleep cannot cure, for its origin is not physical, but spiritual. It is the weight of chronic information consumption, a daily avalanche that not only hijacks your focus, but more subtly and dangerously creates a profound distrust in your own wisdom. And you know this feeling. It is the incessant search for one more article, one more video, one more expert, in the hope of finding the final piece of the puzzle. But this search is like trying to quench a thirst by drinking salt water. It only intensifies the need, leaving you thirstier and more lost. With every new, contradictory opinion you absorb, your inner voice becomes weaker, and the belief that the answer is always out there becomes stronger, until your inner space, which should be a sanctuary, becomes merely an echo of the exterior noise. In ancient traditions, there is a deep understanding of the hermetic principle of rhythm, a universal law that governs all creation. This principle teaches that all of life moves in a sacred oscillation, a flow and an ebb like the ocean tides, or the rhythm of your own breath. One cannot only inhale, one must exhale for life to continue. The excess input of the modern world forces us into a state of constant inhalation, absorbing without ever having the sacred time for exhalation, for silence, for integration. This blockage of the natural cadence of being is the fundamental cause of our psychic fatigue. When was the last time you allowed yourself to simply exhale, to let go of the world so you could meet yourself? Herein lies a truth that is profoundly counterintuitive to our productivity-driven logic. More data does not create more clarity. In fact, it actively reduces the precision of your intuition. Your intuition is the wisdom of your body and your soul. It operates in the silence between thoughts, in the feelings that emerge when the mind grows calm. To flood your consciousness with information is like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a noisy crowd. A sensory fast, on the other hand, the act of stepping away from the noise, elevates your ability to perceive the hidden patterns, the synchronicities, the messages that the universe is constantly weaving all around you, but which are invisible to the eyes of an overburdened mind. What if the clarity you seek is not in one more piece of information, but in the absence of it? Consider, then, the possibility of creating an oasis in the desert of noise, an information Sabbath. This is not a duty, but an invitation to a pilgrimage back home. For 36 hours each week, the proposal is to abstain from all feeds, news, and non-essential inputs. At first, you might feel the anxiety of withdrawal, the urge to fill the silence. But if you persist, something new begins to emerge. The invitation is to observe the variation in your mood, the texture of your thoughts, and the clarity of your bodily sensations when the outside world finally goes quiet. It is an act of radical reconnection with the only source that never abandons you, yourself. Think of your mind as a garden. If you keep throwing in new seeds every minute, none of them will have time to take root, and the result will be a chaos of fragile sprouts. Silence is the rich soil, and the time that allows the right seeds, your truths, to grow deep roots. The practice of silence is like the act of tuning a delicate quartz crystal radio. To pick up the rarest and most distant broadcasts, the transmissions of your soul, you do not turn up the volume. You must first meticulously silence all the static. It is in this sacred silence, earned and protected by you, that the faintest melodies of your inner truth finally become audible, clear, and unmistakable. there is an invisible race happening inside you, a perpetual marathon toward a horizon that never gets closer. It is the insatiable hunger for what's next. Your mind, conditioned by countless reward prediction errors, is kept in this vicious and exhausting cycle. The promise of the next notification, the next goal achieved, the next external validation generates a chemical wave of anticipation far more potent than the reward itself. And when the moment finally arrives, it is fleeting, often disappointing, leaving behind a vacuum, a dopamine debt that can only be paid by another race, another chase, another glance toward the future. You are not to blame for being caught in this cycle. It was designed to be addictive, to exploit your biology and keep you focused on the external, always hungry, always feeling that real life will begin tomorrow. This modern dynamic perfectly mirrors an ancient wisdom, a neuromystical lens that connects our biology to the immutable law of polarity. This hermetic principle teaches that everything has its opposite, and that opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. The pendulum always swings. The dopamine spikes of euphoria that you chase are not free. They generate by law a swing to the opposite pole, a drop in energy and mood that is exactly equivalent in intensity. The higher the mountain of anticipation, the deeper the valley of emptiness that follows. By seeking happiness in the intensity of the peak, you unknowingly condemn yourself to living in the shadow of its counterpart. True freedom is not found in pushing the pendulum ever higher, but in finding peace at its point of central stillness. The revelation that emerges from this understanding is transformative. States of receiving, of contentment, and of true fruition do not depend on these dopamine spikes. They flourish from what is called tonic dopamine, a stable baseline, a serene subterranean river of well-being that flows regardless of external circumstances. The invitation is for a radical shift in objective. Less euphoria, more fruition. Less intensity, more presence. What if your soul no longer desired fireworks, but rather the constant, enduring warmth of a hearth? True wealth is not the ability to generate peaks of pleasure, but to maintain an unshakable serenity, a state where joy does not need to be chased because it is already your fundamental nature. To reset this reward circuit, one can embark on a conscious 21-day journey. One suggestion is to combine the daily practice of a brief cold exposure, which naturally calibrates the dopaminergic system, with keeping a journal of delayed gratification. The cold shower is not torture, but an act of sovereignty, where you teach your body that it can find calm and strength even amidst the initial shock. The journal, in turn, where you note the decision to postpone a small pleasure, is not about denial, but about power. It is proof to yourself on a neurological level that you are in command, that your peace is not held hostage by an immediate impulse. It is patient training for finding power in the interval. Think of yourself as an archer before a distant and sacred target. The archer who releases the arrow too soon, moved by the impatience to hit the mark, wastes the shot. Their energy dissipates into the air. The true master is the one who learns to hold the tension on the string, to align their breath with their intention, to become one with the moment before the release. That tension, when held with perfect timing, is not anxiety. It is accumulated power. It is focused intention. Your task is not to frantically shoot arrows in every direction. It is to learn the art of holding your intention with a calm confidence, feeling the fullness of the power in your hands, and releasing it only when your entire being, in a moment of absolute clarity, whispers, "Now." There is a subtle law in human and cosmic interaction that your soul already knows, even if your mind denies it. It is the pain of wanting something with such intensity that you feel somehow that you are pushing it away. This is the energy of attachment, a kind of energetic hunger, the feeling that there is a hole inside of you that desperately needs to be filled by something or someone. And this energy, in its essence, is a signal of scarcity that your energy field constantly radiates like a black hole. On a neurological level, this frequency is even perceived by the mirror neurons of those around you, creating a resonance of withdrawal, an instinctive desire to pull back, not out of malice, but in response to an energy of neediness. Perhaps you have lived this in your relationships or in your career, the feeling that the more you tried to hold on, the more sand slipped through your fingers. This experience is a direct reflection of one of the most ancient and powerful esoteric principles, the maxim of the Emerald Tablet. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, simply put, like attracts like. Your outer reality is a mirror of your inner reality. A consciousness that vibrates at the frequency of lack can only attract more experiences that validate that same lack. It's like a tuning fork. If you vibrate at the note of lack, only the strings of lack will resonate in your life. On the other hand, an inner state of fullness, of wholeness, radiates a frequency that can only attract events and people who resonate with that same fullness. The universe is not giving you what you ask for with your words. It is returning to you a perfect mirror of what you are with your vibration. Herein lies the great turning point, the shift in perception that changes the game. To act as if complete is not an act of pretending. It is not about forcing a smile while inside you feel the emptiness. It is something much more profound. It is the conscious act of establishing a new frequency address for reality's delivery system. It is an inner realignment that begins in the body. It is about finding, within yourself right now, the genuine feeling of peace, gratitude, or joy that you believe the external manifestation will bring you. What frequency are you emitting to the universe in this exact moment? That of hunger, or that of fullness? And what if your task is not to fill the void, but to realize that you were never empty to begin with? To anchor this practice, one can perform an audit of the realized self at dawn. This is a somatic ritual. The goal is not to convince your mind, but to teach your body the feeling of having already arrived. Before the world imprints its beliefs upon you, dedicate a few moments to verbalizing your desires as if they were memories. I am grateful for the clarity that now guides my decisions. But the main focus is not on the words. It is on the next step, to register the somatic changes in your body. Where does this feeling live? Is it a warmth in the chest, a lightness in the shoulders, a relaxation in the stomach? Remain there. Breathe into that feeling. This is your point of power. It is from this state of being that you create. The closed lotus, still a bud immersed in the water, already exudes its fragrance into the air around it, long before its petals open to the sun. This is the perfect symbol of this law. Essence always precedes form. Your task is not to force the flower to bloom, struggling against the closed petals. Your task is to cultivate your inner fragrance, your essence of fullness, and to trust that, in due time, the petals of your outer reality will open naturally to reflect the radiant beauty you have already become within. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. There is a place where most intentions are lost, where trust crumbles to dust. It is not in the beginning, in the euphoria of the decision, nor at the end, in the joy of the harvest. It is in the middle. It is in the vast, silent interval between the moment you cast your desire to the universe and the moment it manifests in your reality. It is the desert of waiting. It is in this vacuum that anxiety flourishes, that doubt puts down deep roots, and that the mind, which hates a vacuum, begins to weave its stories of failure. Is it working? Did I do something wrong? Maybe I don't deserve it. And this agony of waiting is perhaps one of the most difficult tests on the spiritual path. You are not alone in feeling this. It is the final test of your faith, where you are invited to trust the process you cannot see. Herein lies one of the most misunderstood ideas of the spiritual path. The delay you perceive is not a sign of misalignment. It is not a denial of your request from the universe. It is gestation. Think of the process like baking bread. You mix the ingredients, you knead the dough with your intention and energy. But then there is a crucial and non-negotiable step. You must let the dough rest in the dark so that it can rise. Opening the oven every 5 minutes or poking the dough with impatience will only ruin the result. The waiting time is not an empty time. It is an active time of creation. It is the moment when infinite quantum probability is collapsing into the precise and perfect form for your life. And this masterful process requires time, not your anxious interference. The surprising truth, observed even in studies of heart coherence, is that a longer latency between intention and outcome can actually indicate a much greater charge of energetic coherence. In other words, the larger and more complex your desire, the more time and energy the universe may need to orchestrate it masterfully, like a great artist painting their masterpiece. Your anxiety interprets the delay as a problem, a sign that something has gone wrong. But what if time is not your enemy, but your greatest ally? And what if the delay is, in fact, a sign that the universe is preparing something much greater, more beautiful, and more aligned than your impatient mind could conceive? To navigate this sacred interval, one can anchor patience in a symbolic ritual, an act of deep surrender. It consists of writing a letter to your future self, describing the desire as if it were already fulfilled, with all the details and feelings of gratitude. Feel the paper, the pen, the intention flowing through you. Then fold the letter, seal it with wax, feeling the heat and the aroma, and store it in a sacred place, with the intention of opening it only when the manifestation has arrived. This is not an act of forgetting, but of active trust. It is a physical declaration to the universe that you have surrendered the how and the when, externalizing your faith and freeing your present self from the burden of worrying. Your part is done. Now you trust. Think of the hourglass of Saturn, the master of time. The grains of sand fall one by one, slowly, constantly, and inevitably. A single grain seems insignificant. But over ages, it is the patient and persistent fall of these grains that carves stone and shapes landscapes. Your intention is one of those grains. Your trust is the force of gravity that pulls it into reality. Trust its fall. Trust the slow and powerful rhythm of time. It is not working against you. It is working with you silently sculpting your reality with the precision of a master artisan, ensuring that when your creation is ready, it will be solid, perfect, and enduring. We live under the tyranny of the mind, an era of cerebral overload that has made us forget a fundamental truth. We are not a brain carrying a body. We are an embodied consciousness. And in this body resides an ancestral intelligence, a knowing that precedes words. However, the constant noise of our thoughts, plans, and worries has deafened us to the wise alerts of our limbic system, the whispers of our instinct. We are like the captain of a ship who refuses to leave the cabin, obsessed with their maps while ignoring the sound of the creaking hull and the smell of smoke coming from the hold. Perhaps you know this feeling of making a decision that seemed perfectly logical on paper, but that your entire body, in a silent scream, knew was wrong. This dissociation is the root of much suffering, the source of the feeling that we are navigating life with an outdated map. This is not a baseless mystical belief. It is a truth that science is reluctantly beginning to rediscover, building a bridge back to the body. Recent studies, such as those published in the prestigious journal Neurology, show that interoceptive accuracy, your ability to clearly feel your internal bodily states, is a far more powerful predictor of success in decision-making than your IQ. Your ability to feel your own heartbeat, your breath, and your gut feelings contains a wisdom that pure logic simply cannot access. The intelligence of your body is like the mycelial network of a forest, a vast, silent, and interconnected communication that nourishes the entire ecosystem, far wiser than any individual tree. The paradigm shift this requires is immense and challenges the foundation of our education. Neuroscience reveals that intuitive insights, the correct gut feelings, occur about 200 milliseconds before your conscious mind even registers that a decision needs to be made. Think about that. The truth arrives first as a lightning strike, a physical and energetic event in your body. The thunder, which is the thought or the story your mind creates about the event, only arrives later. The conclusion is inescapable and profound. Trusting must precede proving. You were taught to feel something and then search for logical proof to validate that feeling. The true path is the opposite: to learn to honor the feeling as the proof itself, as the truth that arrives before the mind has time to contaminate it with doubt. To cultivate this inner listening, one can adopt a simple protocol before important decisions, a moment of return to the temple of the body. The first step is to tone your vagus nerve for 5 minutes, simply by elongating your exhale. This signals to your nervous system that it is safe, moving it from fight or flight mode to rest and digest mode, the only state in which subtle listening is possible. And then, in silence, perform an internal scan, searching for a micro yes or a micro no. A micro yes might be a subtle sensation of opening, expansion, warmth, or a slight leaning forward. A micro no might be an almost imperceptible contraction, a coldness, a knot in the stomach, or a subtle pulling back. It is a unique and personal language that you learn to decipher with practice and patience. Think of your body as a dowsing rod made of flesh. The dowser does not think to find water. They hold the rod lightly, empty their mind, and trust its inclination. They become so sensitive that they can feel the subtle pull of the energy field of the hidden water beneath the earth. Your body works the same way. It naturally inclines toward what is nourishing, true, and aligned for you, long before your eyes can confirm the presence of the source. Your task is not to force the rod to point where your mind thinks the water should be. Your task is to learn to quiet the mind enough to feel where your body, in its infinite wisdom, is already leaning. There is a subtle frustration that permeates modern effort, the pain of immense exertion that yields little result. It is the agony of following a linear plan, step by step, only to find that life rarely moves in straight lines. You chart the shortest, most logical route between point A and point B, but you find yourself constantly hitting invisible walls, finding dead ends where a door should be. This linear pursuit ignores the fundamental truth that the greatest opportunities, the most magical encounters, and the most valuable resources rarely inhabit the obvious path. They hide in the fractal pathways, in the unexpected connections that your tunnel vision, focused on the straight line, simply cannot see. And you have felt this frustration, that of following the recipe perfectly, only for the result to look nothing like the picture. It is the weariness of trying to force a river to run straight. Ancient wisdom teaches us to observe sacred geometry, the design language of the Creator, the divine signature in matter. In it, we discover that growth in nature rarely happens in forced straight lines. It unfolds in graceful and efficient spirals, governed by the divine proportion, the golden ratio, or phi. From the petals of a flower to the shell of a snail, from ferns to galaxies, the universe demonstrates that the path of the spiral, the path of permission and curved expansion, is infinitely more powerful and sustainable than the path of brute force and the straight line. The straight line is the logic of man. The spiral is the logic of God. What if the greatest opportunities of your life are not at the end of the road you planned, but on an unexpected curve you were invited to take? The mindset shift this invites us to make is profound. It is to understand that the flow of resources and opportunities in life operates non-linearly, like a network of trails in a forest, not a single highway. The help you need may not come from the person you directly ask for it, but from a weak tie, an acquaintance of an acquaintance, met at an event you almost didn't go to. Serendipity, the art of fortunate encounters, surpasses direct solicitation in the flow of abundance. To dance with life, one must release the rigidity of the plan and create space for the unexpected, for the magic that only happens on the curves of the path. Are you willing to trade the certainty of the plan for the possibility of magic? To apply this principle, one can experiment with the golden ratio day plan. It is an invitation to structure your day not as a to-do list, but as a dance between two energies. Dedicate a portion of your time, about 38.2%, to the focused masculine action of doing, and then consciously reserve the larger portion, 61.8%, for the exploratory feminine openness of being and receiving. What does this mean in practice? It means having a conversation with no agenda, reading about a random topic that sparked your curiosity, visiting a part of your city you've never been to. The proposal is to measure, at the end of each week, not just the tasks you completed, but the serendipitous results, the surprises and opportunities that arose when you allowed yourself to step off the straight line and wander the forest trails. Observe the shell of a nautilus, the perfect symbol of this principle. To grow, the nautilus does not push against the wall of the previous chamber, trying to force it to expand. It simply begins to build a new, larger, and more spacious chamber, curving gracefully beyond the old one. Each chamber is filled sequentially, in a perfect spiral of growth. Growth is a natural consequence of expanding into a new space, not of a struggle with the old. May we learn from this sacred geometry, ceasing to push against the walls of our reality, and instead curving with grace into the next, more spacious place that life, in its infinite wisdom, invites us to inhabit. You have felt this before, perhaps in a moment of profound peace in nature, or upon waking from a vivid dream. That pull, that whisper in the silence of your being that said there is more to reality than the eyes can see. It was not your imagination, it was a memory of who you are behind the veils, the silence you have cultivated, the sovereignty over your inner chemistry, the attunement with your body's oracle, the patience with sacred time, and the movement in spirals. Together, they are not just isolated techniques. Together, they are the process of tuning the strings of your being, of building an inner temple, of generating a unified frequency signature that reality, by its very nature, can do nothing but echo. And here, in the heart of the Kybalion, in the immutable law of vibration, resides the truth that can set you free. You do not get what you want. You become what you correspond with. Read this with your soul. Your reality is not something you attract from the outside in, like a magnet pulling metal. Your reality is a resonance you emit from the inside out. Your vibration is the messenger. Your trust is the cosmic address to where the delivery will be made. Think of yourself as a radio tower. You cannot broadcast on the frequency of doubt, lack, and fear, and expect to receive the melody of abundance, peace, and love. You must first become the very frequency of the reality you wish to inhabit. Who must you become in your most authentic state for your desired reality to become a natural consequence? The journey does not end with this revelation. It deepens in its daily application, in its cellular integration. As a practice of integration, one can conduct a weekly audit, a sacred moment to sit with oneself and ask, how aligned is my baseline mood, my silent state of being, with the feeling of already possessing what I seek? Not to judge, but to observe with compassion, and from that honest observation, gently adjust your breath, your posture, and your mental imagery to elevate the fidelity of your frequency, like a musician tuning their instrument before a concert. And herein lies the most important note of caution on this path. Forced positivity sounds dissonant to the universal field. Authenticity is what calibrates the wave. It is better to be authentic in your sadness, welcoming it as a teacher, than to wear a false smile that your body knows is a lie. Your pain, your anger, your fear, when welcomed and honored, are also part of your authentic signature. True alchemy is not denying the shadow, but integrating it, allowing even the gravest notes of your being to contribute to the richness of your final chord. Do not be afraid to be who you are in the totality of your being. Think of yourself finally as a finely tuned harp, with each string representing a facet of your truth. For a long time, perhaps you have tried to play all the strings at once, creating only noise. But now you understand. When you pluck just one of these strings with pure intention and authentic resonance, the string of silence, of patience, of trust in the body, the entire instrument of your life begins to vibrate along with it. The resonance spreads from your soul to the cosmos, and the universe returns the chord in a silent thunder that only your spirit can hear and comprehend. If this journey has resonated in your spirit, leave a silent acknowledgement in the comments. A confirmation, not for the world, but for your own soul. To continue on this journey of remembrance and awakening, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and to like this video. And remember, it is not about what you want, but about who you are.